Hey all, say I just want to. This is the check-in for this week. This is the Profit First week, which I think is really an important lesson, um, at least for many of us in business, especially startups that just have all this drive and passion and everything else. That it just makes you think about a few things that have to be in order for your passions to be funneled in the right direction and intentionally doing that. Wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the past. I know we're moving on, but let's see, due dates and assignments and forums and that, just to re-interject, to re-emphasize. I'm not trying to make anybody fail. I want you all to succeed. Life does not give you 100% on everything. Many of the things I'm going to ask you to do are very, very subjective. I want you to come out of this class a better leader for a business. And if you're involved in agriculture, that's great. A lot of you will go into other channels, or you'll diversify your agricultural operation, stabilizing the finances with another business that can run right alongside of it. Some people call them side hustles. It might be more of the business than any of the others, and that's exciting because that door has been opened in the recent evolution of businesses and small businesses in particular. So we just can't talk about ag specifically throughout this class because many people have supplemented and actually gone to heights that are just amazing in these other business, enabling them to stay on the land, to farm, to ranch, and those kinds of things. And the principles that I'm trying to impress upon you throughout this class are just principles that will work in any business because ag is just a subset of all business. Okay? So hopefully you get that part. I've never been a perfect leader myself. It is something that takes a lifetime, and you never achieve the ultimate. There might be a few people, but pretty darn few people ever achieve that. Finally, they get old enough, and it's like, hey, listen, I've made enough money, I've been successful enough, I've impacted enough people positively, and all those questions have been answered in order to just be content. And that is actually a form of success that many people, when they're younger, don't. I didn't recognize it, is to be content and at peace. And I guess biblically, that's what we're all searching for. That's what I'm searching for. And maybe found it in some ways, maybe not in others. I'm certainly not perfect. Okay, due dates. Hey, listen, the market, if you're in business, has due dates. If you miss opportunities, then you don't get to take those opportunities. So I'm kind of running this class with a little bit of grace here and there, in that with that kind of intentionality. Okay, so it's Friday night. You send me an email. You say, "Hey, listen, there's no way I can get the assignment done." Hey, listen, the assignments, I give you another week and up to 75%. Okay? So, if I were in your shoes, I'd probably ask too. Okay? And I don't mind you asking. You may have a situation arise. I want you to start thinking that as the things that we've talked about before is not putting things off. Great leaders, and you can't afford to put things off. You can't afford to be a procrastinator. I know I went into this earlier, and I don't want to just overly spend a lot of time on that. But listen, if you got a surgery coming on, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular because it's already happened. It always happens. It's like I just didn't get to it. I had this happen to me. If you got a rodeo coming up on the weekend, It's kind of like saying, shoot, it's Christmas and I don't have any money. And, it happens. There's things that do happen that actually disrupt businesses, disrupt our lives. Okay. And I do recognize that because I'm a human too. Okay. So if something happens that absolutely keeps you from doing something, then let me know. Okay. And we'll work with that. Am I going to say, well, we'll give you an eye and you can wait and get this class done towards the middle of the semester? I don't think that's probably beneficial for either side of this in most cases. But you need an extra day? Maybe if you explain yourselves and allow me to have some grace in it. But there's some grace built into the system I've offered you as well. Okay, so quizzes and forums, they've got to be done that week. If you don't listen to the videos, I want you to take the quiz. If you don't listen to the videos, I want to get at least your discussion on the forums. And so I don't give you any points if you do those late. Okay, that's just how it is. That's how the market treats you. It says, hey, listen, this horse is for sale. Do you want him? It's a really good deal. Horses are selling for $5,000-$6,000 that have any training under them. But I'll give it to you for $2,000 today. And if you miss that opportunity, you miss the opportunity. I'm giving you that opportunity. Okay, enough of that. Hopefully that you all have access to the foundations class. A week after this one, we will start into the savings portion, and I want you can start watching those videos now if you have time. Get ahead. Even if you have to rewatch them, at least you'll let a few things sink in. And you can, instead of turning on Netflix, I've got a Netflix account too. I'm not against any of that sort of stuff. So it's very entertaining, but you might have to, during this class, if it, is to maybe review those so that you can go over them again, especially if it's for the first time. I found that each time I go through each one of these lessons is actually I get better. Okay. So hopefully you got access to it. If you don't, you're going to be behind, and I'm not sure whose fault that is. I wanted to just point out a few things about the decision-making assignment, and I appreciate all of your effort. And it might explain some, in a subjective way, what I'm asking for in assignments like this, okay? And we've got a great lesson for this week. I love this part. About business and one of the lessons, the profit first one, and I'll go over that in just a short while. The decision making. I am actually. Let me just tell you that I'm going to grade most of these. These are study guides. These are your notes. I expect you to organize them for me. Okay, for presentation. Okay, so you have to be somewhat persuasive. Now, as I noted in many of yours assignment, I appreciate brevity to a certain degree, but sometimes you just have to get down in the weeds and tell me. Some people are just have more words for how they explain things. Some people can explain things better and that sort of thing. That's just the way it is. But on these assignments, I'm asking for examples, which would be not mine, yours. And I'm asking for your thoughts. So not mine, yours. Okay? Even if you have very little experience, you still have thoughts on things. Okay? So I'm also asking you, I guess, in a small way, in a certain way, is to regurgitate what I have been explaining within the lessons of that particular core of the course. I'm looking mostly for your thoughts, your discussion, and maybe even in a lot of cases, I would love it if people would say, "Hey, I don't agree with this." Okay? So think about it. I'm not asking you to disagree with everything. I don't know everything, but um, the decision making process that we just went through last week is one that I get better at as I teach it, as I think about it, as I implement it. And it's decision making is nothing more than a practice skill. And it becomes part of who you are the more you implement it with intentionality. And great leaders are built in that regard. I mean, there may be a few people, some oddballs out there that just can do this from birth, but I'm not so sure about that, and they're very limited, and not very many of them around if that's the case. We all have the ability to get better at these kinds of things, and they can make our businesses way more effective and way more successful in many ways, besides financially. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, some businesses, they're just at being at the right place at the right time and those kinds of things. It's like, this is just amazing. But, and that can happen. It's not usually the reason for long-term success in a business. It's because somebody or a small group of people actually are implementing some great decisions in all of this. So anyway, give me your thoughts and put your thoughts on paper. That's an important skill also. That's a practice skill. When I ask you these questions, I'm asking you for your thoughts, one way or the other. Give me some examples. And that I'm just trying to get you to get things kind of rolling. If I'm asking you for discussion or for examples in your own case, how did it turn out? I mean, you had this happen, and this was the result. Well, why is that? That's just a form of evaluation, and that's what I'm trying to lead you down the path of. Okay? So, and also one of them, qualities of people that you might hire, put on the right place at the right bus, those kinds of things. I actually left one blank, and many of you didn't fill in the sixth quality that, well, I was looking for. I wasn't trying to get anybody, but I was looking for your thoughts. Okay? You have lots of experiences. Everybody in here is at least 18 years old. You have a wealth of experience. Some have more than others, obviously. But anyway, so profit first. This guy is absolutely on fire. And I think some things that, especially in agriculture, we need a fire built under us every day. One of the things that, I mean, we all have chores. And I mean, I was talking to somebody else. I was giving a reference for another student that went through our program, and I knew him well. He'd actually worked under me. And um, one of the things we started talking about is like, at the 8 hour point in a farmer ranching operation, that's where we start our day. It's not really our starting point, but it's like we need to get through that point so that we can get everything done. And so 14, 16, longer days than that are sometimes typical depending on what we happen to be in the middle of. But we have to be thinking about some of these other processes in order to bring on board people. So we're not spending all our time just looking over the shoulder of our employees. We need to train our employees to make good decisions, put them and to think more like us. If we have honed our own skill, we need to work on ourselves first, and then we can work on them. Okay, so anyway, this is getting long enough. Profit first, and I think you're gonna like the angle that this guy comes at it with. I never can pronounce his last name. His first name's Michael, but I have the book. I've read it, and implemented the main thesis of what he talks about in the book. And I am interested to hear what your thoughts are on his angle of what profits are, how they should be thought of, how they should be treated in a business, and so forth, because profits are absolutely important. In order, I mean, anybody can be a flash in the pan, and that's not one of your mission. That's not involved in any of your missions that have read up to this point. So if you want longevity, if you want growth, if you want to be more successful, I'm sure that there are certain points that you will agree, but don't be afraid to push back a little bit or a lot on all of the things that we'll discuss as class evolves. Okay, over and out.